guys, thanks for stopping by. Welcome to ASMR. ASMR showcases spine-chilling stories from Reddit. All will be narrated in a soothing ASMR whisper. So let's find a quiet spot, relax, and dive into the world of whispers and chills with these scary stories from Reddit. The first clap came from the attic, just one, sharp, hollow, like two pieces of dry wood snapping together. I looked up from the sink. My hands were still wet. The dishes floated in grey water, forgotten. It wasn't loud, but it had weight, like it was meant for me. I live alone, or I did. I tried to ignore it. Old houses settle right. But this wasn't settling. It was rhythmic, deliberate. Clap, clap. The next night, it came again. From the landing this time, closer, as if it had come down a step or two. I froze halfway through brushing my teeth. The mirror showed only me and the open door behind me. But the sound was real. It moved. Clap, clap, clap. It felt like a signal, like it was showing me the way. I don't know why I followed. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I was dreaming. I remember the world feeling soft around the edges, like walking through a warm fog. Each time I stopped, it waited. Each time I stepped forward, it answered. Clap. Down the stairs, clap. Through the kitchen, clap. To the basement door. I stood there, hand on the knob. The air behind it felt swollen, like the house was holding its breath. Clap from the bottom step. I backed away. Since then, it claps every night. Sometimes from the hallway, sometimes just behind the walls. Once, I heard it under the bed. 3 sharp bursts that made the frame shiver. I started locking doors, but the locks always end up undone. I wedged chairs beneath handles. Tape drawers closed. None of it matters. Last night I woke up to find the bedroom door wide open. No draft, just the hallway stretching out like a throat, and the soft, deliberate clap, clap. I think it wants me to come see something. I think it's proud of it. Tonight, it clapped from inside the room. One sudden strike that echoed too long, like a handprint pressed into silence. There was a smell after, warm, coppery, like old blood and hot coins. I don't look anymore. I just write and wait. It claps even when I don't move now. Impatient, like it's rehearsed this 100 times already. The rhythm is faster, sharper, urging. Clap, 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 clap. There's something in the basement. I don't know how I know. I've never opened the door again, but I know. It's down there, and it's waiting for me to come to see. And the sound, the clapping, it isn't just hands anymore. It's many hands. They clap like they're proud, like they're excited, like they know I'll come down eventually. You gonna dig or just stand there? He asked. I stared at the ground. It's dry, uneven, touched, the kind of earth that holds memories. How many times now? I asked. He lit a cigarette, didn't look at me. 3. Well, that I know of anyway. The shovel felt heavy, or maybe I'm just weaker. I started digging. The soil gave way far too easily, loose, familiar. Why do I have to dig? I huffed. He didn't answer, just watched. Smoke drifting sideways, caught in the slight breeze. I kept digging, then thunk, wood. I froze, looked up at him. Is this it? He didn't answer, just nodded, taking another drag. I knelt down and opened it. Inside an envelope, a recorder, and a folded photo. I picked up the recorder with a confused frown and pressed play. Static, then my voice. Flat, detached, cold, almost foreign. She She's dead. I had to. She said she didn't tell anyone, but I don't believe her. Why would I? After everything else, why would I? I stopped the tape, heart hammering. That's not me. He steps closer, his gaze steady, his stance confident. Oh, it is. I stared at the ground for what felt like an eternity. I just panicked, alright, I snapped. No, you decided. His calm demeanour and truthful words were really starting to get to me. I pulled the photo from the box, ignoring him. Her face, 17, a smile I barely recognised. Me beside her, the same smile, happy. She said, I whispered. He nodded. She said she was pregnant. The words hit like a fist, and I tightly closed my eyes. My legs quickly buckled, and I sank to the dirt, fingers digging into the ground, attempting to create a bigger hole. I thought I buried this deeper, I muttered. You did, he said, blowing smoke from his nose. Once. I looked up at him, frowning, anger rising. Then why are you still here? He flicked ash into the hole, watched it vanish into the dark. Because I'm the you who can't forget. Alan doubled over and vomited into the dry bushes. He moaned and held his head, willing himself to stay upright. Stumbling, he fell back against the hood of an old and faded pickup truck. It kept him steady long enough for him to breathe and orient himself. Above him, big red letters illuminated the parking lot. Imbo's Diner. He sighed and rubbed his eyes, shakily walking in through the double doors. Your sign's missing a letter, he said. Are you a Jimbo? A burly man wearing a greased up apron and small white hat stood behind the counter. Name's Sal. What can I get you? Alan patted his pockets. I think I lost my wallet. You got a phone I can use? No phones, just food and tunes. Alan sighed and sat down. Water. Sal dumped ice in a glass, filled it from the tap and slid it to him. Alan drank it down in a single go. Damn, pretty good water. It's from a small city. Good minerals. What small city? No. So how? Did you want anything else? Alan slouched. I said I lost my wallet. Your money's no good here. What are you having? I guess I'll have eggs and toast. Do you have hash brown? An old man appeared in the pass-through window and tapped a bell before quickly disappearing from view. Sal grabbed the plate the man had left and placed it in front of Alan. He stared at the food, watching steam rise off the hash brown. You guys work quick. Sal threw a white towel over his shoulder and walked over to the booths, wiping them down. Alan looked from Sal to his plate and then tentatively picked up the hash brown and took a bite, then another. Soon, the entire plate was empty. Sal had finished cleaning and now stood in front of the jukebox, pressing coins into the slot. Alan turned to watch him. A large glowing L hung above the machine, bathing Sal in red. He pressed a few keys, and an old western song started playing. Alan looked lost in thought. Where are we really? He finally asked. Sal tapped his finger on the jukebox glass. You read the sign. The last thing I remember, I was driving. I saw. Outside, a bus pulled into the dark parking lot. The lights of the diner flickered and the jukebox skipped. The bus's doors swung open and the interior lights switched on. I think that's your ride, kid, Sal said. Alan stood up and walked over to the front doors, peering out the glass. The bus idled in the parking lot, waiting patiently. Where will they take me? I think that depends on you. Alan looked to Sal one last time and then pushed out through the double doors. He walked up to the bus, but hesitated at the entrance. After a few long moments, he stepped up and crossed over the threshold, and then the doors closed behind him. This is an event that I will never forget. There is absolutely no way I could have mistaken this. Let's get into it. Me and my sister were living in a townhouse together at the time. This was about 3 to 4 years ago. We lived in a small suburban town where everyone knew everyone. My town is filled with forests and cornfields, so when it was night time, it was eerie. Here's what happened. It was a Friday evening, and my sister and I were fighting over the phone about something minuscule. We both worked together as well, so you can imagine how heated our arguments can get spending that much time together. During the workday, we are going at it over text, and it has gotten to a bad point where we may need to separate ourselves. As the clock hits 5 p.m, she leaves the office first. We are still texting and fighting over the phone, to a point where I was almost in a full-blown rage. I take a breather, pack my things, and head off back to the townhouse. I was contemplating going over to my parents' house, who lived close by, but at that time I needed to cool down and be by myself. As I'm driving home, I'm completely dreading seeing her there and having to go through yet another argument. I get to the townhouse, I take a deep breath, and I walk towards the front door, preparing myself for another useless argument. I walk in and head into the kitchen, and thankfully she was upstairs in her room. Her room is located right above the kitchen, and I can hear, clear as day, a conversation she's having on the phone. Who is she talking about? You guessed, me. She's calling me every name in the book, talking down on my character, and say downright evil things. At this point, I choose to call my mum to calm me down, and I tell her about the volatile situation we are having. I needed to talk to her about it, in hopes that this argument can be done. As I'm talking to my mum, I hear my sister notice I'm home, and she directly starts screaming at me. I was taken aback at the disgusting things she was saying. She has a very distinct voice that was just piercing through the walls. I snapped. I started screaming back. We are yelling through the ceiling, and my mum is hearing me scream with rage over the phone. She's hearing me go back and forth with her. My mum yells at me to stop, so I do. The next words she said is what put me into a terror. She quietly and slowly tells me, "Your sister is right next to me. She is with me right now at the house. Who are you yelling at?" And that is when I learned about mimic spirits. An evil spirit was mimicking my sister to enrage and feed off the energy. Pray up and be aware. It was a shortcut I'd taken 100 times. Down the alley, past the dumpsters, cut through the back lawn, and I'm home. Quick, quiet, safer than it looked, so I thought. It was just past 2 a.m, after a late shift. My feet hurt, my mind was fogged, and I was halfway through a podcast when I heard it. Crying, faint, wet, muffled. I pulled out my earbud and listened. It came again, from behind a dumpster. I should have walked away. I really should have. But I didn't. I stepped around the bin and saw it. A dirty green backpack, zipped shut, but it was moving. I hesitated. My heart was pounding, my brain screaming, "Don't touch it," but my hands moved on their own. I unzipped it halfway and everything changed. Inside was a girl, small, pale, knees to her chest, tape over her mouth, eyes wide and lifeless, like the light had been pulled out of her. She didn't flinch when I touched her. She just stared, like she'd already died. I peeled the tape off and whispered, "You're okay now." Like that meant anything. She didn't speak. She just grabbed my shirt and buried her face into me. I called the cops. The rest was chaos. Sirens, flashing lights, questions, more questions. They said she'd been missing for weeks. Said she wasn't the first. They found traces of others. Hair, blood, fingerprints. It was a drop point for a trafficking ring. The alley was being watched, under surveillance, and I'd walked right into the middle of it. They told me I ruined months of investigation. Didn't care that I saved her. Then the threats started. Phone calls at 3 a.m. that were nothing but breathing. Footsteps footsteps outside my window. A photo taped to my door. Me, standing in the alley, holding the girl. Then, my cat disappeared. 2 days later, I found her on my windshield, burned, mutilated, her collar in a Ziploc bag taped to the hood. I packed that night, left town, new apartment, changed my number, got a new name. I couldn't sleep for months. Every noise sounded like someone trying to get in. Every stranger on the street looked like someone watching me. But I kept going, told myself it was over. Until last week. Train station bathroom. I was washing my hands when I saw it. The backpack, green, dirty, just sitting in the corner, zipped shut, no one around, and for a moment, I swear to God, I heard crying. I froze. My hand hovered over the zipper, then pulled back. I walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't call anyone. And every second since, I've hated myself a little more. Because now I know, once you open that backpack, your life never goes back to normal. But the worst part, I think they want you to find it. Something I think about from time to time. When I was 16, I would sometimes pick up my 9-year-old brother from school. One day, around 3:15 p.m, we took our normal shortcut home through a dirt track. If you're familiar with Maddington in Perth, you'd know the kind of tracks I'm talking about. Barren scrubland, sand hills, and a dry as bush, with suburban areas still visible around us. It was a hot day, and as we walked, I noticed someone ahead of us. They were tall and wearing a long, dark coat, which felt weird given it was a hot day. At first, I didn't think much of it, but as we got closer, something about him fell off. They stopped walking and just stared at us. It made us stop too. For a moment, everything was still. Then, without warning, they crouched down. Suddenly, their bodies seemed to extend upward, springing into the air and growing unnaturally tall, well over 7.5 feet. My brother and I froze in shock. We watched as they repeated this unsettling movement again and again, their body elongating and springing high into the air in a way that didn't seem humanly possible. Finally, they crouched one last time and vanished from sight, as if sinking into the ground. Terrified, I grabbed my brother's hand and we started running. Just as we were about to hit the exit track, we looked towards a nearby junkyard, about 40 metres away. There he was again, this time springing up and down on the tops of wrecked cars, moving unnaturally fast. We didn't stop to watch. I practically dragged my brother as I legged it the rest of the way home, and once inside, we locked all the doors and tried to catch our breath and just take in what we just saw. To this day, my brother and I remember this event, especially me, right down to the smallest details. I still wonder, what did we witness that day? I'll never forget this for as long as I live. When my son was an infant, I would sometimes sleep in the room across from his, so that I could hear him better at night. My husband is in the military, and would occasionally stand overnight duty also. On this particular night, I was home alone with the baby. I was having a terrible nightmare, the kind you wake to find your heart racing from. Only when I woke up, I wasn't alone in the room. Something was standing by the right side of my bed. It was like a giant shadow with this elongated head and menacing eyes. It seemed angry and confused that I'd woken up and was clearly looking right at it. It squinted its eyes at me and began to lean in. In that moment, my heart ringing in my ears, I could only whisper. I said one word. No. It paused, and that encouraged me to say something else. this shadow entity reared its head back away from me and proceeded to glide all the way around the foot of my bed and out of the bedroom door. I say glide because the way it moved was so smooth, like a fish swimming in water. No disjointedness at all. After that, I clasped my hands together and prayed a bunch of Our Fathers. Then I gathered up the courage and panic ran out of the room to make sure it wasn't anywhere near my baby. I stupidly asked it to leave, but didn't specify my room or my house. But the coast was clear. When I checked my phone to see what time it was after that, it was 3:15 a.m. So my experience happened right at the witching hour. I told my family about this, and some brushed it off, saying I must have been dreaming. I assured them I wasn't. I'm remembering these details even years later now. I didn't believe in the supernatural or paranormal before, but after this happened, I do, and am very wary. Okay, so I don't even know how to start this, and I honestly debated posting it at all, because I'm worried people will just say I'm making it up, or that I'm crazy, but I really needed to talk about it. I live alone in a small house. The place is old like, probably early 1900s, and has one of those low crawl spaces underneath. I moved in about a year ago, and everything was fine until a few weeks ago. It started with noises. I'd hear this soft scraping sound at night, kind of like someone dragging their fingers across the wood floors underneath me. I thought it was raccoons or possums or something like that, so I called pest control. They came, checked everything out, and said there was no sign of any animals, no droppings, no tracks, nothing. But the sounds kept happening, and they got louder. It wasn't every night, only sometimes, random, but always between 2 and 3 a.m, and not just scraping anymore. I started hearing whispering. I know how that sounds, but it wasn't like voices having a conversation, just one voice, a low, raspy whisper, saying the same thing over and over again. I could never make out the words. It was kind of like chanting, but not in any language I recognised. I even tried recording it with my phone, but nothing ever came through on playback, just static. Then, last week, I woke up and my front door was wide open. The deadbolt was still locked, but the actual door was standing open. I thought maybe I hadn't closed it all the way or something like that. But that night, I wedged a chair under the doorknob before I went to bed. Next morning, same thing. The door was wide open and the chair moved. I finally worked up the courage to look under the house. I opened the hatch to the crawl space and shined my flashlight around, and I swear, for a split second, I saw a hand slide out of view. Not an animal paw, an actual hand, long, pale fingers. It was gone before I could get a good look, and I was too freaked out to go in. That was 3 nights ago. I haven't slept since. I keep hearing it moving down there, and I swear last night I heard it whisper my name. I don't know what to do. I can't afford to move. I can't even explain what this is without sounding insane. But I don't think it's an animal. I don't think it's human either. But maybe I'm just overthinking it. I think it wants me to go down there. I've been living next to this giant graveyard for around 2 years. It hosts around 50,000 graves. It's beautiful, and often a place I've visited just to walk around. So I had this awful day at work. This was about 12 years ago now, but I remember it so vividly. It was a horrible day. One of those days where I didn't want to go straight home and deal with all the home jobs. Socialising, cleaning, dinner, etc. Instead, I planned on driving to a mountaintop lookout where there's a cool ice cream venue, grabbing a cone and watching the world drift by while I decompressed. But I took a wrong turn and ended up in the neighbourhood surrounding the cemetery. I figured it's quiet and a cemetery walk would trees I needed. It was just dusk outside, but plenty light enough that I could clearly see trees, houses, names on the gravestones, and if anyone else was around. I knew in about 45 minutes to an hour that it would be dark outside, but for now I felt comfortable. I parked my car and walked over the berm into the graveyard. This graveyard is massive, by the way. Without signs and streets, it would be impossible to find your way through this maze, and there was no way in hell I was planning on walking in that far. I just kept to the sidewalk where the berm and houses were, while the mass of graves were on the left of me. I called my then boyfriend, crying to him about how awful my day had been, and he was trying to calm me down and talk me through my day. In my peripheral to the left of me, I thought I saw a big black shadow, maybe 50 meters in. It was only brief that I saw it, or I think I saw it. I wasn't sure I saw what I saw, and had I left just then, I probably would have shrugged it off, but my fight-or-flight instincts kicked in. I was still on the phone, but became extremely wary of what it was that I think I saw, if I saw anything at all. So, I'm walking and looking in that direction while I'm still on the phone, my eyes peeled just in case something happened, but I definitely began to start feeling uneasy, and I'm now absolutely focused on anything that might be in there with me. I'm a woman walking alone in a graveyard. I'm more concerned with a creepy guy skulking around than I am anything paranormal, but I still feel very uncomfortable and on edge. As I'm walking and talking, but still looking in the direction that I first spotted the shadow, it appeared again. This time, I'm staring right at it, literally watching it manifest, as if it collected this energy or particles and formed a giant black mass, just opaque enough for me to see the gravestones it moved through, but much, much darker than the surrounding area. It was quite tall, much taller than the average human with no arms or legs. Just a moving black mass. It drifted through several gravestones for about 4 seconds, which is long enough for me to question whether or not I'm seeing things and then confirming, nope, I'm definitely looking straight at this thing, and that is not a person. It was maybe a little closer than I saw it the first time, not by much, maybe 40 meters now. 4 seconds is a really long time to see something and watch it move, and I just stared at it, and I think I stopped talking on the phone completely. I don't remember what I thought at the time, other than the confirmation to myself that what I'm seeing is real. Then, as quick as it appeared, it just vanished, like a fog dissipating again. Instantly, I got this image in my head that the next time I saw it would be right in my face. I quickly told my boyfriend I would see him at home, turned and hurriedly walked to the car and left. I just feel like maybe something was looking out for me and sending me a warning that whatever this thing was, it did not have good intentions and I needed to leave. I don't remember being very scared while I was driving. I don't feel like anything followed me or was in the car with me. It definitely snapped me out of whatever mood I was in that day. When I got home, I told my boyfriend what had happened, and immediately he shrugged it off, saying it must have been me hallucinating since I was super emotional. I was really irritated at that response. I know what I saw, and I'm usually a really calm, rational person, so there's no way I just got so carried away with my emotions that I started seeing things. That felt so unreasonable of a response to me, and so invalidating. I lived with my uncle at the time, and told him what happened, and how I was really disappointed with my boyfriend's response. That's when he suggested maybe I saw something because I was emotional and vulnerable. Maybe my walls were down and it was drawn to me. The more I think about that incident, the more that just feels right. I think whatever it was seemed curious about me. Maybe I did have my walls down, I don't know. But I don't think that whatever it was had good intentions. I'm just glad to not have any lingering experience with whatever that was. It's been so many years, and I remember it so vividly, and I'm always racking my brain, wondering what the hell that thing was. I let him move in mid-January, said he was a mate of a mate, just out of a hostel, needed a floor and a bit of warmth. I had the spare room, the big one, with no radiator, and I was between jobs. 50 quid a week seemed fair. He turned up with a black bin bag and a backpack that stank of socks and something sharp beneath, like vinegar and copper. Quiet bloke, polite, stayed in the room with the curtains shut. If I'd knock, he'd mumble, just rest in. By week 3, the smell had spread, clinking to the banister, pooling in the hall. Not just sweat or unwashed clothes, something deeper, like a stagnant water or rotting fat. I asked if he wanted the shower. He just grinned and said, not for me, got my own ways. His teeth looked like old custard. He never left during the day, but some nights I'd wake up to the front door creaking around 3 or 4 a.m. He'd come back, muddy, lips cracked like salt flats. I asked where he'd been. Down the places where the crows gather, he said. They sing for her now. You'll hear it soon. When he didn't answer the door for 2 days, I went in. The mould had taken over. Black blooms across the walls, feathers and dead grass scattered on the carpet. One corner had a pile of meat, grey, slick, unidentifiable. No plate, just left there, carefully, like an offering. Raph was curled on the mattress, whispering to the wall. I told him to leave, said I didn't want trouble. He looked up, eyes ringed yellow. You brought me in, he said. You opened the door. That's all it takes. That night, I locked my door and slept with a knife. Around 2 a.m, I heard something wet tearing, like butcher's twine snapping under weight. Then silence. In the morning, he was gone. No clothes, no bag, just a wet heap in the centre of the room. Clotted hair, mulch and shredded bone, like someone peeled him inside out and poured him through a sieve. The window was shut. No blood, no sign of a struggle, just a smell like sour meat and a stain that won't scrub out. He left one thing behind, a circle scratched into the wall, 13 lines, all pointing inward. It hums if you press your ear to it. When I was about 16, 17, I experienced one of the scariest weeks of my life. I grew up terrified of the dark, only because my mind would start to see things, shapes and shadows. One night, while in bed, I noticed a dark shadow in a corner where the ceiling and walls meet. It was so dark and felt evil. Some time passed. I really don't know how much, but the shadow got darker and felt more sinister as the nights went. One night, the evil felt so overwhelming, I slept on my parents' floor. The next couple of days, the evil felt more and more malicious. It progressed to the point that I could not stay in my room for more than a few minutes. The evil seemed to fill my room. I then couldn't enter the room. Over the course of a week, the evil got stronger and stronger. I couldn't even go to that side of the house. I was more terrified than I've ever been. On one particular night, I had been babysitting my little brothers. The house was set up so that the kitchen and living room were connected. I was sitting in the living room, watching TV with my back to the kitchen. All of a sudden, I had the fear that if I looked at the TV, I would see something behind me. Then, I got the overwhelming feeling that someone was watching me, hovering behind me. It was truly the most malicious, evil and disgusting feeling I'd ever felt. I immediately had a panic attack and called my parents in hysterics. They rushed home, and my father informed me that he hadn't blessed the house when we moved in. We went into the room, and my father said a prayer. The feeling slowly left. I grew up Mormon, but I'm atheist, spiritual now. But I'm still not sure what it means. I'm very in tune with paranormal energies, and this experience was by far the most evil I've ever come across. Well, that concludes today's Scary Reddit stories. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this creepy journey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Please also leave your own spooky experiences below in the comments. Who knows, I could add it to the next video, which would be amazing. Until